Thank you very much for listening to the No Fruit Podcast. Today we have a special guest. She is the host of Listen Up, Younger Self, a podcast where she turns her own hindsight into powerful tools for others. She uses her experiences and, yes, her past mistakes to help people avoid the same pitfalls and make choices that truly serve their happiness. She's passionate about helping others put their egos aside. I mean, I don't know if you could do that. I don't know if I could do that. But she has and embrace humility and prioritize what really matters in life. Right after the intro, we'll bring her to the stage.
Let's talk about love and marriage, the way that God intended. Life experience, here we share it. The No Fruit Podcast. Tune in from any platform. No Fruit Podcast. Will help your spirit transform.
Thank you for staying tuned. And we have none other than Heather Solomon. Thank you, Heather, for coming onto the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
I'm happy to be here.
No problem. So, I have to kick off the show with this. You stating to look at things, hindsight, and, we understand that, sometimes a vision is 2020. But there's some of us that when we look into that mirror is a little fuzzy. It's still a little hazy or whatever it is. And sometimes we really don't like the figure that looks back at us. So how were you able to deal with that? Because a lot of times we don't want to look backwards. We want to kind of say, hey, that was yesterday and keep it moving forward.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think for me, I needed to look at my life and decide if that was my story.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to make sure that I knew that who I wanted to be could be that person, but it didn't need to reflect my past. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I had made mistakes. I knew that mistakes had been made by others.
Mm-hmm.
And it was up to me whether or not I repeated them. And if I didn't want that, then I needed to do the work to make sure that that didn't happen again.
Right.
And so I think it's super important for so many people to take a self-check so often. And you could do it once a month, once a year, once every 5 years, and go, is this who I was meant to be?
Right.
And if it's not, then you get to rewrite your story whenever you want to.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to put in the work.
Yeah.
And I knew that the things that I had done in the past, the things that I had seen in the past, the way my childhood went, maybe not necessarily every part of it, but there were certain dynamics that I wanted to be better for my kids.
Right.
And I wanted to break certain cycles.
Yeah.
And that was up to me.
Yeah. I think a lot of us do that in some kind of regard where we want to break that cycle. Like, I don't want to ever be like my mom. Like, I hate when he says, like, you sound like your mom. I'm like, oh gosh, no. We don't want that at all. But there's something, I guess because we were raised by these people, it's just embedded in us to do that. And so what steps do we take really other than, hey, I don't want to do this. Like, what we have to dig deeper. Like, what is it that we have to do to really make that change and not just kind of say it on the surface?
Yeah, I think intentions are nothing without action.
Right.
And so I think figuring out who has what you want, right? So at a very young age, I mean, I was probably 22 years old when I was like, I need my life to go in a certain direction. I had no idea how to be a mother. I mean, I knew how to be a mother, right? I didn't know how to be a wife.
Right.
Okay, that's what I was saying. I mean, my mom was a good example of mom. She's a great example of mom. But I never had a dad around. Okay. And so I didn't know what that family dynamic looked like.
Right.
And I needed to figure out what it looked like. So I actually started listening to Dr. Laura Schlesinger. Do you know who she is? Okay. I was obsessed. And I listened to her all the time about putting her children first, putting her husband first, doing all of these things that were so out of the realm of norm for me because I was like, well, I'm going to put me first, right? Like, you make me happy. But that was kind of the mentality that I had at that point in my life.
Right.
And listening to people like Dr. Laura, and I started reading books and doing all of those things that were pretty much not typical for someone at 22.
Right.
Because I was like, I want something else.
Yeah.
But I had to dive into what people knew that had what I had.
Mhm.
And so that's what I did. I was like, I had to start putting me aside and making sure that the people in my life, felt like they were a priority, but also I had to make me happy first.
Yeah.
So that I didn't count on somebody to make me happy.
Sometimes we don't understand the importance of the relationship, the 50-50 side, or, the give or take and things like that. And we get so caught up in what we want that we don't understand the importance that, part of your happiness is that they're happy as well. And whether it's our kids, even if you look at a broader picture or scope, our coworkers, that's how you maneuver through an organization, your community, whatever it is. So, I thank you for just being vulnerable enough to say, hey, maybe in order for this world to be better, I need to look at myself. Because like I said, sometimes we don't like that view that looks back, because I know sometimes I don't.
Yeah, I think that's true for everyone.
Right.
We don't always show up 100%. We don't always show up 50%.
Right.
But when we don't, I just think like taking a look at ourselves and going, why did that happen? And what do I need to do to change that version of myself? Because if you're not happy with yourself, the only person who can change it is you. And I know that there was a point in my life where, you'd show up grumpy, still today, but like I knew that I counted on like my husband. I wanted him to make me happy. Like that was his job, but it wasn't. He was a great like sidekick to my happiness. He was a great,
add
part
on.
of it.
Yeah.
I had to be there first. And so, they say, happy wife, happy life. It wasn't his job to make me happy. It was my job first. And it's the same thing when you walk into your workplace. If you walk in with a chip on your shoulder, people around you feel that and they respond accordingly.
Yeah.
But if I walk in and I'm the light, people respond to that as well. And people then in turn want to be around you. So you got to decide what version of you wants to show up. And it's, who do I want to be for my kids? Who do I want to be for my friends, my husband, my parents? Like, who do I want to be for those people? Because so many times they feed off your energy. And then everything can be good. You know what I'm saying? Like you have the power to make the people around you respond accordingly.
Right.
And if we show up like we're supposed to, they will.
And I think something that's missed in that, because some people might feel as though like you're dimming your light a little bit because you're trying to make sure that everything is going smoothly or whatever it is. But there's a sense of empowerment as well, because you're still controlling the environment, not just for yourself but everyone else around you, to make sure everything is running smoothly. We're all happy. We're at the party. Everyone can laugh and dance. Everyone's not just a wallflower, something like that. So I think that's a part that we kind of miss as well. Even though we seem like it feels as though, or it might look like from the outside that we're dimming the light, but we're actually turning that light up probably on 1,000. And so I thank you for that as well. Because I think that's something that you had mentioned, talking about the power within us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's super important that, that is the thing. I've had some people say to me before, isn't that manipulation? Isn't that manipulation when you're trying to alter how someone else feels? And I said, maybe, but maybe it's manipulation in the most pure form, in the best form, when you're not trying to manipulate them to be anything other than happy. Right. All I want for you is to be happy. I want you to leave the room feeling better than when you came in it. And I don't always hit that mark. Right. I'm not always on, but that's my goal. My goal is to make sure that that's happened. And when it comes to my marriage, one of the things I had learned was to put my husband first. And I knew that was wildly unpopular because people especially mamas, they're like, no, my babies come first.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
And truthfully, there is no family if your unit as a couple is gone.
Right.
Mhm.
And so, it's our responsibility to show up and let our kids know what marriage is supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And it can be a happy environment. It can be wonderful. And it can be, I always say, a magical love affair. Like, I want my kids to see a magical love affair.
Yeah, yeah.
And or it can look like a partnership, or it can look like two people who live in the same house but don't like each other. And so
Right.
it's our responsibility to show up that way so that our kids moving forward have what we want them to have. And if they don't, because they replicate what we have and it's not good, then it's kind of our fault. Then we're just creating another pattern that someone down the line needs to break.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I just want to go back to something you said a little bit about just looking at yourself, and that's hard. I think just because of society, we always want to strive for perfection. I remember being a little kid, and it's like you want to get an A, like you want to have a great report card, and you want to have a 4.0 GPA, and you want to
Mhm.
get the best job, and you want to live in the best. Like everything was like such
Mhm.
perfection. And Maurice and I talk about this all the time. Like,
Mhm.
what is perfection? And like, am I your perfect person? And are you my perfect person? And we've kind of gotten to this point, and it's like, nothing's perfect, nothing but
Mhm.
Jesus Christ is perfect. Like, so we, in somewhere we have to, like you said, do a self-reflection and realize
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm not going to show up in this space perfect all the time. That's so much stress to put on myself. That's so much stress to put on another person, especially
Right.
someone that I care for, to say, I want you to be perfect at every point that you come into my space. So I think what you're saying is very profound. And I think it's really
Mhm.
hard, especially for us, the way we've learned from society, that perfection is what we're supposed to be. Like, you watch things
Yeah.
on television, and now, social media, everyone's hair is perfect. Like their clothes are perfect. Like it's just such a tough place to put us in. And so my question is, I guess, like, how do you then show that not only for yourself, because you can do that self-reflection, but to those you love and you care for, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your children, whether it's your family members, that, hey, I'm not always going to be on this perfect level all the time.
Yeah, I think accountability is huge.
Mhm.
One, I think perfection is not pretty. I think what it takes to make yourself look perfect is exhausting. I
Yes.
think it's absolutely exhausting. And it's not attainable. It's 100% not possible. And there was a point in my life when I was younger with little kids, the house had to look a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Everything had to be, because I was a stay-at-home mom. So my job had to be perfect. I had to have it all perfect. And I was running myself mad.
Yeah.
And so in my search for perfection, I was grumpy and
Mm-hmm.
stressed out. And so on the outside, everything looked fabulous. But when you see that, you've got to know something's crumbling inside.
Wow.
And so I had to start letting go of what I thought perfection was
Mm-hmm.
and make sure people were being happy.
Mhm.
And actually, my husband came home one day, and the kids were little and the house was perfect, all the things, but everything was stressful. And he said, "Did you guys have a good day?"
Oh, wow.
And I was like, "Oh, well, I had to do X, Y, and Z." And he's like, "No, you didn't." He was so calm and so able to just look at it and go, I know you want to keep things a certain way, but can you just have fun with the kids?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Have fun
Yeah.
with the kids, because they're only this little for this long. And, you know, looking back at that, that was a start for me to start letting go of some of the ideas I thought other people
Mm-hmm.
held for me, because we're not being perfect for ourselves as much as we are for the rest of the world.
Right.
And then when it comes time to be in like today's life, when you're not your best self, I think the best thing you can do is own it. Is
Mm-hmm.
just being able to look at someone and say, wow, I was wrong. I was not okay. This is what I was going through. And just having all the communication that you can. And I think it's crucial for your kids
Mhm.
to see that you're not perfect. I think it's crucial for you to apologize to your children when you're not right.
Right.
It's okay to admit, like, just because I'm mom doesn't mean I know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
It
right.
means that I've just messed up more than you have. I've just been figuring it out on the way. But accountability and ownership when you're wrong,
Mhm.
and really letting people see the real side of you,
Yeah.
I think is is so much more valuable than them seeing an unattainable view of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you do this self-reflection, should someone do this before they get into a relationship? Is it best doing after the relationship? Because sometimes we don't know what we should do before we say, I do. So when do you think will be the good time to do this self-reflection?
Before, during, and after. I think all of the above is the exact appropriate time to do it. I think when you're getting into a relationship with someone, taking a look at who you are and who you need to be in that relationship.
Yeah.
You never want to be someone other than who you are.
Mm-hmm.
You just want to make sure that you're the person that you need to be for you to show up the best for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that during it, it's great. You got to sit down. And, one of the things that I do occasionally with my husband is we do a little checklist, and it's, what am I doing good? Like, give me something that I'm doing good. Give me something that I can improve on for you. Give me something that makes you happy that I do. You know what I mean? It's just these little things to just do a self-check with each other. And I think that, and then after, like, if you have an argument, if you are feeling stagnant, if you're feeling happy, go, what am I doing right? If I'm feeling stagnant, what can I do better at? And if you're not happy, who am I blaming? Because I think a lot of times we're so busy blaming the other person that we are not willing to look within, and it's never a one-man show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I ask that because sometimes when we're dating, and because we just had this conversation not too long ago, so that's why I'm bringing it up. While you're dating, sometimes you have the representative of me, not necessarily who I really am. Because we're trying to put on a good face. We're trying to, impress and, hey, and also we're trying to figure out whether or not we're going to be here for the long haul or not, if we're playing around or, whatever. So that's why I ask, because sometimes you don't want that other person to see your flaws. You don't want them to see you in a bad light. It's almost like when you go to a job interview, you have on the most perfect uniform or suit or whatever it is. So, do you think it's safe to show your imperfections even in that dating or courting space?
I think being true to who you are is the only way the person you're with can be true to who they are as well. So if I'm showing up as my authentic self, it gives me the ability to see how that person reacts to me. And so if I'm showing up as someone who I really am not, right, I'm putting on a show, that person doesn't know who I am. I don't necessarily know how they're going to react to the person that I am because they don't know me.
Right.
And so I think we all show up as our best selves when we start dating. We show up as our best selves for that, but it's only a matter of time. It really is. Before the real you is going to come to light, right? It's only a matter of time. And there's no way, I just don't believe that there's a way that perfect version of yourself can last that long. So eventually you're going to have to see that person for who she is or he is, and you're going to have to own it. And because they're coming. And then you're going to see how the other person is too, right? Like, they're coming.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. That's good. And I think that sometimes can be difficult to show up as your authentic self. I think another time Maurice and I were talking, it's just like, especially we as women, we get into our roles. I'm mom, like you said earlier, and you play the mom role, or, hey, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm the wife, and you don't really get to pull all those things. My husband says, you wear multiple hats and you have to present yourself wearing those multiple hats. But I'm like, well, when I'm on the side and I'm assisting, the cheerleading, I'm that person, you know what I mean? But I have to remember that I can wear multiple hats. I can send my husband a text message while I'm at cheerleading practice with the kids and those types of things. So that I am wearing those multiple hats at that time in that space. So, but I think that's still very hard to do. Like while I'm washing the dish and, just doing regular household wifely chores or, motherly things that you have to do. Like I don't always think of like, hey, what are these other things that I have to do in life? And that can be trying at times. At least for me, it was, and has been. So, what advice do you have, or what?
Well, I think that everybody needs to see everything about you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? When you're being cheerleader mom, that's you. That's your version of you at that moment. You're
Right.
cheerleader mom, and that's how you're showing up. We are different people to different people.
Yes.
No matter what. That doesn't make you unauthentic. It doesn't make you fake. It just makes you that version of yourself that's showing up in that moment. When I volunteer, I work with veterans locally here.
Okay.
They don't see me coming in the house if like the dog pooped on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see that version of Heather. They don't need to. They don't need to see that version of Heather, right? But there's certain people who will only ever see your highlight because that's how you get to show up for them, because you're not close enough. You don't have that relationship.
Yeah.
Where they ever really truly need to see the other side of you. Like you're really showing up for them. Like when you're cheerleading mom, like your job is, I mean, the first word is cheerleading, right? You're like, oh my God. Like,
Yes.
this is who we are right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Nobody's negative. We are flipping and we're
That's right. And we're doing it safely. Come on, girls.
Right? But then there's other situations, unfortunately, where maybe you're in the grocery store line and somebody does something, and then all of a sudden this version of you shows up that you're not particularly happy with. And I've actually apologized to the person before at the grocery store line because Wicked Heather showed up for 2 seconds and I wasn't proud of it, and so I had to go, I'm so sorry, and just catch myself. So I think you are different people to different people, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Okay.
As long as when you're home because home is safe, right?
Yeah.
Or it should be. That's when you get to authentically be yourself. If you have really good friends, like you get to authentically be you at that point in time. So as long as you have those safe places to be you and to feel at ease, then I think that's the most important, is that you have that safety.
Good.
Wow. So, Heather, someone like, well, first of all, do you talk to husbands as well, or you just talk to moms and, whatnot?
Well, I try to just talk to women because I understand their perspective and I understand how our minds work.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I understand men. I feel like men are super simple. Like, please do not take offense at this at all. I feel like we're the ones that overthink things. We're the ones that make things bigger. Men, like my husband, is so black and white. There is no gray area. He says what he says. There is no underlying anywhere. If I ask him if he's okay and he says yes, he's okay. If he asks me if I'm okay and I say yes, that might not be the case.
Right.
So I feel like because I understand how women are a lot more than I understand men, I try to talk to women.
Yes.
And I only ask because I want to know, before we say, for people to reach out to you, we just want to understand what your specialty might be, because you might have a guy, one or two, that say, hey, you know what, Heather, like, I think you can mentor me as well. So I just want to know if you were interested in something like that.
Yeah. So I am starting, it'll be coming in the next month or so. I'm starting a coaching program, and it's not a marriage coach. It's called Hindsight with Heather. And it's going to be me. I'm your best friend who gives it to you the way it is. I'm just going to shoot it straight. I'm going to tell you what I think. That's exactly what it's about, right?
Yeah.
And I would, because I have talked to other men before, because they'll ask me for my perspective on what a woman might be thinking.
Right.
And so, I mean, I don't want to do any kind of couple thing because I don't feel necessarily qualified for that.
Right.
But I would love to have the opportunity. And if a man came, 100%, I would take that on too. But I feel like most of my energy and most of my audience has been women. Although a few women have sent some of my episodes over to their husband and said, you should really listen to this one.
Right. So I have a question though then. I'm sorry. I mean, how long have you been married?
Going on 30 years.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Going on 30 years.
30 years.
So, we're at 25.
Yes.
And you don't think you're qualified?
I
I just asked.
I mean, I guess I feel like I'm qualified to do the one-on-one. I feel like for me,
Mhm.
a lot of times when I see people go into marriage counseling, from what I've seen, they go into it with the idea that the counselor is going to sit there and go, see, you're wrong, and the other one's going to sit back and go, I told you, you're the fool,
Mhm.
And so I feel like for me, one-on-one is so much more effective when I can
Mhm.
actually get into what's going on in your head and why
Right.
is it so important for you to be right? Why is
Mhm.
it so important for you to be right and for you to prove them wrong? Because when you prove them wrong, you're taking away something from them too. You're taking away a little bit of their power,
Mhm.
you know. And so I think for me, it's more of why. Why is that so important for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
And I understand, I only ask because, again, I think we're all qualified who's been married longer than, 10 minutes
Yeah.
right now, to be honest,
Yeah.
because of our life experiences. We have a lot to offer. And I think some of the things that you had mentioned today really lends that experience
Yeah.
to those
Mhm.
individuals. So I can hear where what you're speaking and what you're saying, where it could benefit both men and women.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I asked. So talking about authenticity, understanding how everyone operates and maneuvers through life. I think it benefits both. So that's why I asked. And,
Yeah.
and so as we're directing whoever's listening today,
Yes.
where can they find you, whether or not they're men or women, where can they find you and talk to you?
Well, I have my podcast, which is Listen Up Younger Self. That's on all the streaming apps. And then also, just for now, I have my social media, which is at Heather SLMN. So it's Heather Solomon, just shortened. And then also, so you can find me on social there. And then also, you can email me at listenupyoungerself@gmail.com.
Great.
But you never know. I mean, I'll start with coaching one way. You never know where it's going to
Where
lead.
it's
I
gonna
know
go.
that's
It
right.
Yes.
could
Yes.
end up being partners or husbands and wives.
Mhm.
So
Right.
it could happen.
Nice.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think some of the principles you talk about, as
Mhm.
Maurice was saying, are applicable both for male and female, like just
Right.
looking into yourself and all those things. I think that works across the board. So I think that's kind of where he was going with it, that,
Yeah.
hey, the principles are there. One final
Yeah.
question before we get ready to go. Been thinking about this when, we first got on, and I've been kind of holding back, but I want to ask you this question. Heather, if you could sing a duet with anyone in the world, living or deceased, who would you sing that duet with?
Judy Garland.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Oh, yes. That's a good one.
My mom is the biggest Wizard of Oz fan in the
Oh,
entire world.
Really?
wow.
And yeah, she's the biggest Wizard of Oz fan. And my mom would get a kick out of it. One, if I could sing. And two, if I could hear her.
Oh, wow. Maybe it should be a trio with Judy and her daughter and you.
Right.
So.
Oh gosh, get some Liza in there.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
Yeah, I'm in.
I think it's a trio. I
don't know
think
if we're gonna make
I might have to
that
change
happen,
the
but you
question.
never know.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, yes. I like
Nice.
that. I like that. Very good. Very good. It's been a pleasure talking with you
Mhm.
today, and all of the information that you
Likewise.
shared with us will be in our show notes. So
Yes.
your website and not your website, but your social media information and all of that will certainly be in the show notes, so individuals can reach out to you. And I hope that our listeners do, because it was great information that you shared today.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you for
you
having
very-
me on. This was so much fun. I
Okay.
appreciate you both.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Thank you. We appreciate you. And thank you for listening to the No Fruit Podcast. And we will talk to you a little later.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the No Fruit Podcast, where we bring you fruitful conversations, ripened wisdom, and love that's deeply rooted. We hope today's discussion left you feeling uplifted, encouraged, and ready to take on life's journey with purpose. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration in their day. You can catch up on past episodes, send us your thoughts, or learn more about us on social media. Until next time, stay rooted in love, and remember, every seed you plant today shapes the fruit of tomorrow. Take care, and we'll see you next time.